Today we're going to be talking about angles, complementary, supplementary, and vertical angles. First, we'll discuss complementary angles. It's important to remember that a right angle is formed when two lines meet in a perpendicular fashion and form a 90-degree angle. Complementary angles happen when two angles are combined to form a right angle. Here, angle A plus angle B add up to be 90 degrees, which makes them a right angle and complementary. Angles don't have to be touching to be considered complementary. Here we have a 40-degree angle and a 50-degree angle. When you add them together, they're 90 degrees. That still makes them complementary. Take a second to pause the video and try to solve these four problems. Let's go over the problems. In problem number 1, we have a 25 and a 65-degree angle. When you combine them, they total 90 degrees. That makes these two angles complementary. In problem number 2, the angle measures are 47 degrees and 42 degrees. When you add them together, you get 89 degrees. So these two angles are not complementary. In problem number 3, 33 degrees and 59 degrees total to make 92 degrees. So these are also not complementary. And in the last problem, they once again add to 90, making them complementary. Supplementary angles. Just as right angles were important for complementary angles, straight angles are important for supplementary angles. Straight angles are formed when the measure of the angle is 180 degrees. They form a straight line. When two angles combine to make 180 degrees, they are called supplementary angles. Here we have a 120-degree angle and a 60-degree angle. When you add them together, they total 180 degrees. That makes these two angles supplementary angles. Just like complementary angles didn't have to be touching, supplementary angles don't either. Here we have a 50-degree angle and a 130-degree angle. When we add them together, they total 180 degrees. That makes these two angles supplementary, even though they're not touching. Take a minute to pause the video and try to solve these four problems to find out if these pairs of angles are supplementary. Let's go over the problems. In problem number 1, the angle measures were 22 degrees and 170 degrees. When we add those two angle measures together, they total to 192 degrees. That's more than 180, so these angles are not supplementary. In problem number 2, the angle measures are 45 degrees and 135 degrees. When we add them together, we find that they do total to 180 degrees. So these two angles are indeed supplementary. In problem number 3, 49 degrees and 131 degrees total to 180 degrees. So these are also supplementary. And in problem number 4, 76 degrees and 114 degrees total to 190, so they are not supplementary. Our next type of angles are vertical angles. Vertical angles are found where two lines intersect, forming four angles. When two lines intersect, four angles are formed. Angles that are across from each other only sharing a vertex, which is that point at the end of the angle, are called vertical angles. So in this diagram, angle 1 and angle 2 would be vertical angles, and angle 3 and angle 4 would be another pair of vertical angles. Vertical angles are always congruent. Congruent means they are the same or their measures are equal. And we mark things that are congruent with a new symbol. It's an equal sign with that little squiggly line across the top. In this diagram, we see that top angle is 120 degrees, and A is right below it. They only share a vertex. They don't touch in any other way. They are across from each other where these two lines cross, so that means they're vertical angles. So A must also be a 120 degree angle. Go ahead and take a second to pause the video again and try to answer the following 3 questions. What can you conclude about angles A and B, A and C, and A and D? Let's take a look at question 1. What can you conclude about angles A and B? Here I've highlighted the fact that A and B combine to make a straight angle. A and B add up to 180 degrees, which makes them supplementary. In question 2, what can you conclude about angles A and C? We see that A and C are across from each other. Those angles are vertical angles, so their measures are the same. They are congruent. And in question 3, what can you conclude about angles A and D? We see that they again combine to form a straight angle. They also add to 180 degrees, making them supplementary. Here are a couple of rules to remember when we talk about two lines that intersect. Angles that are across from one another are congruent. They're the same, vertical angles. Angles that are touching or share a side are supplementary. They will add to 180 degrees. Use these rules to find the measures of angles A, B, and C. Take a second, pause the video, and figure them out. The 65-degree angle and angle B are across from each other, which means they're vertical angles and congruent. Therefore, the measure of angle B is 65 degrees. The 65-degree angle and angle A are supplementary because they're neighbors and they form a straight angle. That means that when you add them together, they must equal 180 degrees. Set up a simple equation. 65 plus angle A equals 180. You can then subtract 65 from both sides and find that the measure of angle A is 115 degrees. Angle A and angle C are vertical angles. They're across from one another. Since angle A is 115 degrees, angle C must also be 115 degrees.